Good morning. You are now tuned in to the morning show of yours truly, Dex the Algo Capitalist. I do hope that everyone had a wonderful weekend and you were able to relax or, you know, do hobbies, whatever. But now it's time to get back to business, right? It's Monday. And it's so far is kind of a boring Monday, as you already know if you watched Sunday's watch list report. You'll know that what we were expecting to happen coming into the new week is pretty much taking that course. It's a boring trading session thus far with two outliers. The first being Bitcoin up $2,310, trading at 63,260. And then, of course, gold down a staggering $35.70 an ounce, trading at $2,339.30 per ounce. Silver down also, down 18 cents, trading at $28.31 an ounce. So those are the outliers that stand out. All the other markets are quiet and null, doing absolutely nothing today. So we are taking note of that. What else? Well, a lot of news likes to come out over the weekend, as you know, and sometimes it's takes a lot to decipher because there's so much of it. But one thing we have not been able to escape, and it seems to prop up in just about every conversation, regardless of the topic at hand, is one of a couple of things. One of those things being the economy and how people are starting to fear and prepare for the worst. And not only that, but along with it, opinions fluctuate on the economy. But there is one group that has a decidedly strong take on it. Yeah, in the subreddit economic collapse, users are preparing for a Soviet Union type fall of the US economy. Now, I've been talking about the fall of the United States of America. It's falling from a multiple standpoint. So you have economic woes, you have moral and spiritual woes, you have physical woes, infrastructure woes. There's so many different layers to the collapse. It's not just one thing. But from investing in defense stocks to refusing to hold any savings in cash, the economic glass isn't half empty in the eyes of some. It's almost dry, in their opinion. Now, this movement is gaining popularity with the subreddit's membership growing 80% from the end of 2021 to the end of 2023. Now, even passing interest in the potential downfall of the economy is on the rise. Searches for stock market crash and economic crash rose 17% and 15% respectively, according to data. Now, there's an element of alarmism here, but the general pessimism mirrors how many Americans really feel about the American economy. Now, the middle class believes the life they aspired to is no longer possible. Further down the economic totem pole, Alice's, which are asset limited, income constrained, employed, or AKA the working poor, are struggling to make ends meet. Even those entering retirement aren't financially prepared for it. So, economic doomsayers do make you wonder about cracks in the economy, especially when so many people are starting to, ring the alarm bells. But they are a day late and a dollar short because these alarm bells have been rung since 1994. And then they were rung again in 1999. And then the alarm was sounding even stronger in 2007. Every time the alarm bell is rung, it is ignored. So now you have the housing market, sky high mortgage rates, which have been a problem for a while, but now with supply on the rise, it's sellers, not buyers, who could be in trouble. To make matters worse, more and more houses in the US are worth significantly less than the mortgages financing them. The stock market's been relatively strong, but there are caveats. We have to thank AI for a good chunk of that. And considering the healthy amount of exaggerating companies have done to get on the AI bandwagon, it's easy to see how it could all come crashing down, just like the tech bubble in 1999. Okay, but jobs are still good, right? The unemployment rate is incredibly low, right? Yes and no. Job growth slowed a lot in April, and it's hard for certain demographics like high earners to switch jobs because once you lose a six-figure salary, you're automatically thrown into the gig economy and minimum wage, glass ceiling type jobs, working alongside high schoolers. Well, at least interest rate cuts will provide some relief, maybe. So, about that, the number of companies filing for bankruptcy is spiking. Cuts continue to get delayed. In fact, some experts speculate the economy will need to crash before cuts come. That's something that I have been a proponent of. I've been telling you that that's what it's going to take in order to get the Fed to do what the people want the Fed to do. And this is also alarming, concerning, and should make you stop and think because Russia is also taking part in this discussion. Did you know that Vladimir Putin has fired his defense minister and replaced him with an economist? That's right. You heard me right. Putin fired his defense minister and replaced him with an economist. What does that tell you? Yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's not looking too good. Mm-mm. And did you know that the US China rivalry is also starting to have a negative effect? Yeah. Mega cap earnings growth will likely come under pressure from tensions between Washington and Beijing. Apple and Tesla are among the firms that could be particularly vulnerable in this situation and have already seen a run on their stocks, which have been under distribution. This is an issue. And then it's funny because now everyone's scrambling, trying to piece together, their failing companies. Social media is not even limited these days with walkthrough videos of people walking through various, uh, you know, population centers in America and showing all the boarded up commercial spaces, all the stores that have closed up shop or gone bankrupt and went out of business. And it's not just limited to any particular one sector. We have retail stores, restaurants, banks, automotive dealers, you name the industry, and there's a boarded up building somewhere where that company used to be. And we're not just talking about mom and pops, we're talking about Fortune 500 companies, mega corporations, international corporations. And that should be frightening. But most people just have a passe attitude about it, like it's not affecting them or not going to affect them. But it is going to affect you. One of the key markers that a society is about to collapse is when they start bringing in more bread and circus. And you look at and watch reality TV on, and you notice that it's not based on reality, it's a script, but it's showing you all types of negativity and the breakdown of human relationships and connections. So you're watching the disintegration of the emotional and mental state of Americans. It is bizarre. It is scary. And one of these markers when a country is about to implode is the rise in substance use and abuse. And beside that, the rise of wanting to legalize said chemicals. Did you know that Rick Doblin and MAPS, the nonprofit that he founded, has been pushing to legalize medical MDMA? For those that don't know what that is, that's street drugs, like Molly. You can't make this stuff up, man. Think about it. This is crazy. But yeah, they want to now legalize this because again, drugs make a lot of money for people. So they want to go ahead and legalize, ecstasy and Molly. Yeah, man. That's what they want to do, to keep people in a vegetative state as long as possible. Escapism is on the rise. Yeah, man. Substance use and abuse and gambling. Those are the two major markers of a society on the verge of collapse or that is already collapsing. In ancient Rome, they had their bread and circus. People crowded into the theater to watch human beings get torn apart by animals and each others in gladiator style combat, even in very unfair situations and circumstances. Man with no weapons, butt naked, versus hungry tiger that hasn't eaten in a week. Yeah, let's see how long it takes him to be devoured. That kind of thing. And that's what you get. That's what you start to see. And another marker is the rise of illness and disease. Some may even say it's the culling of the herd. But remember, anytime you hear an advertisement on the radio or television, even if they disguise it to not sound like it's a commercial, but it is a commercial. When you're hearing a commercial, that means someone paid for that commercial. Advertising on radio and television is not free nor cheap. To get an idea of the cost of doing these things, just look at how expensive Super Bowl ads are. If you want to ad in the Super Bowl, it could cost you millions of dollars just for like a 15-second spot. Yeah. So, did anyone stop to think about this? Advertising and marketing are nothing more than business strategies. Anyone who is in any type of business needs to market and promote their business. So anytime you hear a commercial someone is begging you for money. You need to always remember that. A company is not going to shell out tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on marketing, promotion, and advertising unless they know they're going to see that money return to them in the form of profits. So I run an ad on the radio, I run an ad on the television because I'm trying to get customers. Now, it can become tricky, and here's where the psychological manipulation part comes in. Because you'll see or hear an ad, a commercial from a nonprofit organization. Now, if it's a nonprofit, it means they don't make profit. They're not in the business of making a profit. They're a nonprofit organization. But here's the problem. They need money in order to operate. Hence the commercials, hence the marketing and promotion. What is marketing and promotion? What is a commercial? A commercial is an advertisement for money. There is an ask for money. They're asking you for money in exchange for their product or service. So a nonprofit, even though it is not in the business of generating a profit, it is still a business. All right. They're in the business of giving money to people and or organizations that need it. So they're basically a middleman. Instead of helping the homeless man on the street, you give the money to said nonprofit organization, and then they filter out money to that homeless dude on the street. That's the way that works. So a nonprofit is a middleman, but it's still a business. Even though they're not in the business of profits, they are in the business of making money. They need to make money in order to run their nonprofit, in order to filter out the money to the intended target of the nonprofit. Maybe the nonprofit gives out scholarships to students to go to college. Maybe the nonprofit is in the business of giving people shoes who need shoes. Fill in the blank. But they're still a business. Just because they don't turn a profit, they're still a business, and they still are marketing a product and or service. A product doesn't have to be a tangible one. It's like analogous to intellectual property. All right, so it's disguised. When you hear it, you don't think that it's a commercial, but it is. They had to pay someone to design the ad, the commercial, to reach the intended audience whose money they're trying to capture. And as we get into more high techness as a society with AI and things of that nature, it's going to become harder to read and understand when you're being commercialized, when you're being marketed to, when you're being promoted to, when someone's trying to get your attention because they're trying to get some of your money. They want your money. That's what a commercial is. A commercial in a nutshell is a plea for money. It's an ask for money. I'm asking for money. That's what it is. That's why it was very confusing when Obama was elected as president back in 2008. We began to hear commercials and see commercials that we had never heard before or seen before. What commercials am I referring to? I'm referring to the commercials, the government advertising for SNAP food stamp benefits and TANF and even Section 8 housing. Yeah. Then we started seeing and hearing commercials and advertisements for Social Security benefits, and even how you may be able to increase them or even apply for disability benefits. I never in my life heard or saw a commercial for welfare. Now think about this. You need to do the knowledge to this. Now, back then, it was estimated about 40 million households were on welfare. So, if the government is paying the television station, if they're paying the radio station to run these commercials and run these ads, that's a cost. Again, no one's going to run a cost. No one's going to have an expenditure unless they are almost guaranteed that that money is going to be returned to them, that it's going to come back to them. So you'd be like, well, I don't understand because, the government's not a non-profit organization per se, but in a way they are because the government doesn't make anything. The government doesn't create anything. Okay, they don't. The government doesn't create anything. So if they don't have a product, a physical, tangible product to sell you, if they don't have any intellectual property that they're trying to sell you, then what is it that they are trying to sell you? They haven't asked you for money either. Remember, our definition was a commercial is an ask for money, right? So then I must ask you this question. If the government is advertising for welfare, and welfare is not a physical created thing like a car or an iPhone, if welfare is not intellectual property like artificial intelligence or some type of, high tech device, then what is the product? Is the product the welfare itself, the SNAP benefits, the EBT card? No, ladies and gentlemen. That is the wrong answer. If you wrote that answer down on your test, you just failed this class. The product, when the government is doing the advertising, the marketing, the promotion, the commercial, the product is you. You are the product. If anything is free, it's because it's not free. Someone else is paying the cost unbeknownst to you. So then you're the product, folks. You are the product. You need to understand this. You are the product. No one is going to spend all this money on marketing and promotion and ads unless they feel guaranteed and very sure that they're going to get a return, that they're going to make a profit, that they're going to reach their goals. So what is the goal? If that's what they're marketing, what are they trying to achieve? They're trying to achieve more people on the rolls, on the welfare rolls. It's sort of like the dark side of reality. Did you ever stop and think why you were seeing all these services starting to prop up over the last 30 years and why you've been hearing the word autism? Autism used to be an extremely rare thing, like 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100,000 babies born would be born with autism. Now it's at an epidemic where it has grown by hundreds, if not thousands of percents. Instead of 1 in 1,000, it's like 1 in 10 or less, or 1 in 7. Has no one stopped to think about this? Okay, let me help you then. We'll make this a multiple choice. Let me help you. Let's pencil this part in. Have you ever stopped to think why there were so many fertility clinics popping up over the last 30 years? Fertility issues used to be rare. rare. Okay. So rare that we can count the instances of barren women in the Bible on one hand. One hand. Stories that had to do with barren women. You can count them on one hand. And they were hundreds, if not thousands of years apart. Yep. I can only think of two that come to mind. I'm thinking of, no, actually, there's more when you stop and think about it. I'm say, I think we might be able to fill up a hand. Let's see, Sarah, Abraham's wife. Um, uh, let me see, Rachel, but I don't know if that would really count. Jacob's, the wife that he loved, because he didn't really like Leah. He got bamboozled into marrying her, and because he loved Rachel and had no love for Leah, the Lord made it so that Leah would, have all the children basically, and then Rachel only had like two or whatever. And then you got, who else? I don't know if Mary's cousin Elizabeth was barren, but I know Hannah was barren. That was Samuel's mama. So yeah, and you figure the scriptures covers like a 6,000 year history. So in 6,000 years of biblical history, you have 5 or less stories about barren women in the Bible. Yeah. Now, it could be said too that obviously if we're going to use traditional conservative values, an unmarried woman would basically be barren because she's unmarried, so she's not doesn't have a husband, they're not having relations, so they're not having any children, right? That's a whole nother broadcast. We'll talk about that, the epidemic of singlehood right now. But staying on point here, whenever you see an explosion of things, you should start to think it through. Like, why are we seeing this? So we have all these fertility clinics propped up all over the country in the last 30 years, where there were none in the prior 30 years, the previous 30 years. Then we started to see men's clinics propping up all over the country in the last 30 years to help men with impotence. Okay. So again, not something that was so mainstream in the prior 30 years, but all of a sudden it's such an epidemic that a pharmaceutical company decided that it was worth it to spend $30 million plus in research and development to bring to market Viagra. And yes, they've made their money back on their initial investment, many times over, which means that there was such a need for the product that it needed to be brought to market. The most disturbing case to me, besides the autism explosion in the last 30 years, would be the cancer explosion. Cancer used to also be rare. But now, all of a sudden, cancer centers have exploded over the last 30 years. I mean, exploded. I don't think you can go to a hospital in the United States of America that doesn't have a cancer ward or a cancer wing. I don't think you can visit a hospital that doesn't have a floor full of children with leukemia type diseases, or should I say blood cancers. This to me is the most alarming. The most alarming. Because remember, it wasn't long ago the Bill Clinton said, if we can get everyone in the world vaccinated, then, then we can reduce the population. What did he mean by that? Did he mean because by doing so, he would sterilize everybody, or something else? Well, we deal with facts here. We're not conspiracy theorists on this channel. We are conspiracy analysts. We analyze data and information in order to make well-informed decisions and arrive at understandings and truths and facts. So it is being projected that the new cases of cancer in the United States will explode again, but this time to a brand new record high, 2 million in 2024, this year. You heard me right. We are witnessing an explosion of cancer in the United States that is absolutely unprecedented. It is being projected that the number of new cases of cancer in the US will hit a brand new record high this year, and cancer rates are rising particularly rapidly among young people, just like infertility and young women is on the rise, along with young men. I know you've heard the stories of people in their 30s being diagnosed with Alzheimer's in their 30s. There have been so many prominent individuals in the news that have been diagnosed with cancer recently, and so many people that you know personally and that I know who've also been diagnosed with cancer even recently. I'm sure that most of you also personally know people that have been affected by this disease. I'm sure some of you have lost friends and family to cancer. Of course, cancer has been one of the leading causes of death for a very long time, but we have never witnessed anything quite like this. So, according to the American Cancer Society, this year the number of newly diagnosed cases of cancer will surpass the 2 million mark for the first time ever. Cancer incidence, however, is on the rise for many common cancers. In the coming year, we're expecting to hit a bleak milestone. For the first time, new cases of cancer in the U.S. are expected to cross the 2 million mark. That's almost 5,500 cancer diagnoses a day. This trend is largely affected by the aging and growth of the population and by a rise in diagnoses of 6 of the 10 most common cancers: breast cancer, prostate cancer, endometrial, pancreatic, kidney, and melanoma. The other 4 top 10 cancers are lung, colon, rectum, bladder, and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. This is alarming. Millions of Americans are dying way too early. Back in the day, cancer was considered to be a disease that would strike in old age. But now cancer rates among our young people are absolutely exploding. Why is that? According to a new study published in BMJ Oncology, cancer rates worldwide have risen dramatically in people under the age of 50. Researchers examined data from 204 countries between 1990 and 2019. They found that there were more than 3.26 million early onset cancer cases reported in those countries in 2019, up from 1.82 million in 1990, an increase of 79.1%. The study defined early onset cancer as a diagnosis that occurs between the ages of 14 and 49. Now, I don't know why researchers only looked at numbers through 2019. Personally, I would love to see the figures for the last several years and see what those look like since 2019 to 2024, since the pandemic. But everyone agrees that cancer rates among young people are surging like never before. For example, one study discovered that the number of women under the age of 25 being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer has increased by close to 200% since the 1990s. Now, a frightening explosion of young women developing one of the deadliest cancers has baffled experts. Rates of pancreatic cancer have soared by up to 200% in women under the age of 25 since the 1990s. Overall, incidences of the disease, which has a 5-year survival rate of just 5%, have increased by around 17% over the same time span, with soaring obesity rates suspected to be behind the trend. But I don't buy that. I think because the society is sick, our environment is sick. All the chemicals that are in our environment are making us sick. All the chemtrail spraying and global geoengineering and all the chemicals they put in the food and in the public tap water. That is what is killing people. Young people are also getting colon cancer at a staggering rate. Young people, folks. In fact, it is being projected that the number of young people under the age of 40 that will die from colon cancer each year will double by the year 2030. Now, these findings come at a time when colon cancer deaths among people under 40 are expected to double by 2030, and it is projected to be the number one cause of cancer deaths in young people by the end of the decade. Overall, rates of all types of gastrointestinal cancer among our young people are skyrocketing, and this has experts deeply alarmed. Gastrointestinal cancer diagnoses in America under 50 climbed drastically over a decade, with the starkest rise occurring in under 19s at 109%. And the number of GI cancers among children under 19 more than doubled from 2010 to 2019, and overall incidences of GI cancers among under 50s rose by 15%. Now, GI cancers include those in the stomach, esophagus, colon, and rectum, liver, pancreas, anus, gallbladder, and small intestine. The fact that so many young people are getting cancer will mean lots of cash for the cancer industry during the years ahead. According to the CDC, more than $240 billion will be spent on cancer care in the United States on a yearly basis by 2030. Just think about the magnitude of that. That is close to $250 billion. If a cure for cancer was found, all of that money would go away. Unfortunately, cancer rates are likely to continue to go up. We're being told that approximately 40% of all Americans will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lives. But at the rate that we are going, it won't be too long before that figure hits 50% or more. Today, we live in a society that is incredibly toxic. For example, according to one recent study, the air that we breathe as we drive our vehicles can literally cause cancer. Tens of millions of Americans each day breathe in carcinogenic chemicals that are woven into the interiors of their cars, a new study has found. Now, while opening a window can help reduce the risk, only reforms can keep people safe, researchers wrote in a study in Environmental Science and Technology. Now, there isn't anything that we can do about this because federal law has mandated the use of these carcinogenic chemicals since the 1970s. Approximately 124 million Americans commute each day, spending an average of an hour in their cars. Now, by federal law, the interior of these vehicles are required to contain flame retardants or chemicals that make it harder for them to combust in a crash. These chemicals have been a legally mandated part of modern cars since the 1970s when the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration passed a law requiring their use. How about for another example? Most of our diets are heavily made up of sugary and fatty foods. And a study that was just conducted in Singapore has found that a compound released when the body breaks down sugary and fatty foods is linked to higher rates of cancer. A study in Singapore looked at the effect of methyl glycosol, a compound released when the body breaks down sugary and fatty foods, on a gene that helps fight off tumors. And at first, the academics found that this was able to temporarily shut off the BRCA2's gene's ability to protect against cancer forming and growing. Now, doctors have known for decades that eating junk food is linked to a much higher risk of cancer, even if the person is not obese, but the exact mechanism is still being understood. Now, needless to say, those two studies are just the tip of the iceberg. Our air, our water, our soil, our food, and thousands of products all around us are absolutely saturated with cancer causing toxins. All we can do is attempt to minimize our risk as much as possible, if not avoid this altogether. So, yeah, this is what we got going on, folks. And that's why there has never been a cure that has been allowed to exist for cancer, because they wouldn't be able to get their profits. That's why any and everyone who has ever created a cure for it or found a cure has been either silenced, jailed, or unalived. Yeah. Tomorrow we're going to do part 2 of this, because it doesn't stop here. Oh, no, 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 no. You don't want to miss tomorrow's part 2. Remember, the system works if you work the system. Bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And on that note, I'll see you guys this evening for the evening watch list. And if you missed it, you may want to check. I did send out a tweet updating open positions and working orders. All right, I sent that tweet out last night. Forget what time it was. I also sent out the message on Discord and also in the Slack room if you missed those. Okay, so those are the 3 places you can look to find it. All right, folks, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.